The space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was old and tired, like a machine that had worked too long without rest. The paint was peeling from the walls. The lights flickered sometimes. The air always smelled a little bit like metal and cleaning chemicals, but this was home for 847 children. They came from 12 different worlds. They spoke different languages. Their skin was different colors, some blue, some green, some gray, some covered in soft fur or hard scales. Some had 2 eyes, some had 4, some had none at all. But they all had one thing in common. They had no parents. The HFY War had taken everything from them. 3 years ago, warships had burned through the outer territories. Cities turned to ash. Families were torn apart. And when the fighting finally stopped, thousands of children were left alone. The Galactic Relief Station was built to help them. It gave them food, beds, medicine, and teachers. It kept them alive until someone could find them new homes. But finding homes for alien orphans was slow work. Very slow. Some children had been waiting for years, but most of the staff did not stay long. The work was hard, the pay was small, and the sadness was everywhere. You could see it in the children's eyes. You could hear it in their quiet crying at night. It was the kind of place that made people feel helpless. Park Doan had been the night janitor for 14 months. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He was not tall or strong. He was not special in any way. Back on Earth, he had worked in a factory for 30 years. He had been married to a woman named Yoonji, and they had raised a daughter named Sua together. Their life was simple and good. Then Yoonji got sick. The doctors tried everything, but nothing worked. She died on a Tuesday morning in spring, when the cherry blossoms were falling outside her hospital window. After that, Earth felt too empty. Every street reminded Dohan of his wife. Every restaurant, every park, every store. He could not escape her memory. So when he saw an advertisement for off-world workers, he applied. The station needed janitors. He needed distance. For 14 months, Dohan mopped floors and cleaned bathrooms and emptied trash bins. He worked the night shift because he could not sleep anyway. He kept to himself. He did his job. He tried not to think too much, but the children made that impossible. They were everywhere. Running through hallways, playing in common rooms, sitting alone in corners. And slowly, without meaning to, Dohan began to learn about them. The small blue ones were called Vilari. They had big dark eyes that could see in almost complete darkness. They were shy and gentle, and they loved soft things like blankets and pillows. The tall gray ones were Krath. They were strong and proud, and many of them had scars from the war. Some were missing limbs. They tried to act tough, but Dohan had seen them crying when they thought no one was watching. The furry ones were Morvith. They always stayed close together, touching shoulders or holding hands. They hated being alone more than anything. There were others too, Delaney, Vosk, Tyrian, and more. Each species had their own culture, their own language, their own way of grieving. But children were children, everywhere in the galaxy. They needed the same things: safety, love, hope. The station could only give them the first one dot in early December. Earth calendar. Dohan noticed something strange. The Vilari children were whispering. They gathered in small groups, talking in their soft, clicking language. When Dohan walked past, they went quiet and watched him with their big, dark eyes. He had learned a little bit of their language over the months, enough to understand simple words. He caught pieces of their conversations: gift giver, winter festival, impossible things. He did not understand what they meant, but he was curious. One night, while mopping the sleeping ward, Dohan found a piece of paper taped to the wall beside his small bed. The handwriting was shaky, clearly done by hands, that were not used to human letters. He leaned closer to read it. "Dear Santa," it said, "my name is Thierry. I am 7 cycles old. The human teacher showed us about your Earth tradition. She said you bring gifts to good children. I have been good. I have not bitten anyone since the 3rd moon." Dohan smiled a little at that dot, then he read the next part, and his smile disappeared. "I would like my mother back. If that is too hard, I would like a blanket that smells like her. Valari mothers have a special smell. I am forgetting it. I try to remember every night, but it gets harder. Please help me. Thank you." Dohan stood very still for a long time. He looked at the small bed beside the letter. A tiny blue girl was sleeping there, her small hands clutching a thin pillow. Her breathing was soft and even. She looked peaceful, but even in sleep, there were dried tear tracks on her face. He photographed the letter with his communication device. Then he kept walking. By the end of the week, he found 19 more letters. They were everywhere, taped to walls, tucked under pillows, folded into small squares, and hidden in pockets. The human teacher, a young woman named Yunhana, had told the children about Christmas as a cultural lesson. She wanted to teach them about Earth traditions. She thought it would be educational and fun. She had not expected what happened next. The children wrote to Sana, and their wishes broke Dohan's heart. Kreth boy named Vakel wrote, "I want my arm back." The soldiers took it. They said, "Kreth children do not need arms because we will all die anyway." I did not die, but I cannot hold things anymore. I cannot hug my little brother. He died in the camp. I want to hug him one more time, but I cannot because I have no arms to hug with. Maybe just give me one arm. The left one. That was my favorite. Twin Morva sisters wrote together on one piece of paper, "We want a family, but a family that will take both of us. Everyone wants to separate us. They say it is easier to place one child than 2, but we cannot be apart. We promised our mother before she died. We held her hands and promised, 'Please, Santa, we will be very good. We will do anything.'" A teenage Delaney boy wrote only one sentence, "I want to stop being afraid when I close my eyes." Dohan sat in his small room that night, scrolling through the photographs. 19 letters, 19 broken hearts. And these were only the ones he had found. How many more were hidden somewhere, waiting for a miracle that would never come? He thought about his wife, Unji. She had spent her last months knitting blankets. Even when she was too weak to stand, she sat in her hospital bed with yarn and needles, making blankets for refugee children in a shelter back home. He had asked her why once. Why spend her last energy on strangers? "Because the world is cold," she had said, her fingers still working the yarn. "But hands are warm, and warm hands can make the world a little softer." Dohan looked at the photographs again. These children had lost everything. Their homes, their families, their entire worlds. They had nothing left except hope. And now they were putting that hope into letters to a magical man who did not exist. Someone should tell them the truth. Someone should explain that Santa was just a story, that there was no magic, that their wishes would not come true. But Dohan could not do that. Instead, he made a decision. He did not know how. He did not know if it was possible. He was just an old janitor with bad knees and a broken heart. He had no money, no power, no connections. But he had 31 days until Christmas, and he was going to make it real. The next morning, Dohan went to see the station administrator. Kel was a tall insect-like creature from a species called the Consortium. He had 6 legs, 2 arms, and a head covered in hard black shell. His eyes were compound, like a fly's, and when he spoke, his mandibles clicked together in a way that always made Dohan uncomfortable. Kel's office was the nicest room on the station. It had real wooden furniture, shipped from some distant forest world. It had paintings on the walls and soft carpet on the floor. It even had a window that looked out at the stars. Doan had never been inside before. Janitors did not visit the administrator's office. "Janitor Park," Kel said, not looking up from his computer screen. "Why are you here? Is there a maintenance issue?" "No, sir. I have a request." The clicking sound got louder. This was how Kel showed annoyance. "A request from a janitor." "Very well, speak." Dohan explained about the letters. He showed Kel the photographs on his device. He talked about Christmas, about the tradition of giving gifts to children, about how the orphans had written their wishes to Santa. "I am requesting funding," Dohan said. "For gifts, for decorations, for a small celebration. The children have nothing. This would give them something to hope for." Kel was silent for exactly 6 seconds. Then his mandibles clicked rapidly, which was how his species laughed. "You want me to spend station resources on decorations, on toys? For what purpose?" "For the children's happiness. Happiness is not in our operational mandate." Kel finally looked at Doan, his compound eyes reflecting dozens of tiny images. "Janitor Park, let me explain something to you. This station has a budget. That budget covers food, housing, medical care, and education. These things keep the children alive. Happiness does not keep anyone alive. But the children are fed. They are housed. They receive education. They are safe. Our job is to keep them alive until permanent placement can be arranged. That is all. Emotional enrichment is not my concern." Dohan felt anger rising in his chest. They are children. Not cargo. Not numbers on a screen. Children. Kel's clicking stopped. The silence was worse than the laughter. "I understand that humans have emotional attachments to young ones," Kel said slowly. "But sentiment does not expedite the placement process. It does not increase funding. It does not solve any problem. It only creates additional work and expense." He turned back to his screen. "Request denied. Return to your duties." Dohan stood there for a moment, fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to argue. He wanted to shout. But he knew it would not change anything. So he left. He found Yoon Hannah in the cafeteria, eating lunch alone. The young teacher looked exhausted. Dark circles sat heavy under her eyes, and her food was barely touched. She was staring at the wall like she was seeing something far away. Doan sat down across from her. "The administrator said no," he told her. Hannah nodded slowly, unsurprised. "I thought he would. How long have you been on this station?" 8 months. "You look like you have not slept in 7 of them." Hannah almost smiled at that. Almost. The children have nightmares. When they wake up screaming, someone has to be there. The night staff are overworked, so I help. Most nights, I get maybe 3 hours of sleep." Dohan thought about the letters again. About Tiri's mother's smell. About Vako's missing arm. About the twins who refused to be separated. "I read the lists," he said. "All of them." Hannah's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. "I should not have taught them about Christmas. I thought it would be nice, educational, something hopeful. I did not realize they would ask for the impossible. Yes." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Now they think Santa is coming. They think magic is real. And in 30 days, when nothing happens, they will learn the truth. That there is no magic. That no one is coming to save them. That their wishes mean nothing." The weight of that truth hung in the air between them. Dohan leaned forward. "What if we gave them the possible? And made it feel impossible?" Hannah looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "Some wishes cannot be granted. The dead cannot return. Missing limbs cannot regrow. But some wishes can be granted. Small things, toys, food that tastes like home, blankets, stories, things that matter to children. But the administrator said he would not pay. He did not say we could not do it ourselves. Hannah stared at him. You want to buy presents? For 800 children? With our own money? Yes, that is impossible. We are a janitor and a teacher. We do not have that kind of money. We do not have connections. We do not have time. Dohan pulled out his communication device. I have a daughter on Earth. She works at a shipping company. She knows people. Maybe she can help. Maybe it's not a plan. No, Dohan agreed. But it is a start. That night, Dohan called his daughter. Park Sua was 31 years old, smart and practical, with her mother's sharp eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She worked in logistics for a shipping company in Seoul, moving packages across continents and sometimes across star systems. She was good at solving problems. When her father's face appeared on her screen, she knew something was different. There was a light in his eyes that she had not seen since before her mother's funeral. Appa, she said, using the Korean word for father. What is wrong? You never call this early. Dawn told her everything. About the station, the children, the letters. About Christmas and Santa and the wishes that broke his heart. About the administrator who said no and the teacher who said impossible. Su-I listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Appa, she finally said, you are talking about shipping packages across 3 relay gates. The distance alone would be expensive. But the customs fees, the inspection delays, the bureaucracy, it would cost a fortune. I have savings. You have retirement. That money is supposed to last you 30 more years. What good is retirement money if I cannot sleep at night? Dawn's voice was firm. Sua, I have worked my whole life. I saved every penny. I never took vacations. I never bought expensive things. And do you know why? Because I thought I was saving for the future. But your mother taught me something before she died. What? The future is not guaranteed. The only thing we have is today. And today, there are 800 children who believe in magic. I can make that magic real. Or I can keep my money and watch them learn that hope is worthless. Sua was quiet again. Dahan could see her thinking, calculating, planning. She was always like this, her brain working even when her mouth was still. Send me the lists, she finally said. What? The letters. The wishes. Send them to me. I will see what I can do. Dahan felt something loosen in his chest. It was the first time in months that he had felt anything like hope. Thank you, Sua. Do not thank me yet. She smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like her mother. We have 30 days and no plan. This might be impossible. Your mother always said that impossible things just take a little longer. I know. She said it to me every time I had homework I did not want it to do. Dawn laughed. It was a small laugh, rusty from lack of use, but it was real. That night, he sent his daughter 19 letters from children who still believed in miracles. He did not know if it would work. He did not know if anything would come of it. But he had taken the first step. And sometimes, that was all you could do. Take the first step and hope the path appeared beneath your feet. Sua stayed up all night reading the letters. She sat at her kitchen table in her small apartment in Seoul, scrolling through the photographs her father had sent. Outside, the city was quiet. Snow was falling softly, covering the streets in white. But Sua did not notice. She could not stop reading. A 7-year-old girl who was forgetting her mother's smell. A boy with one arm, who wanted to hug his dead brother. Twin sisters who would rather die than be separated. A teenager who was afraid to close his Sue worked in logistics. She moved boxes from one place to another. She dealt with numbers and schedules and shipping routes. She had never thought much about what was inside those boxes, or who was waiting for them, or what they meant. These letters changed that. By morning, she had a plan. It was not a good plan, it was desperate and probably impossible, but it was something. She removed the children's names from the letters. She translated their wishes into simple requests. Then she posted them on a humanitarian form that her company sometimes used for charity work. Children need help, she wrote. They have nothing. They want simple things. Please read their wishes. She expected a few responses. Maybe enough donations to buy some toys and blankets. Maybe enough to make a small difference. She was wrong. Within 6 hours, the post had been shared over 10,000 times. Within 12 hours, it was on news sites across 3 star systems. Within 24 hours, Sue's inbox was flooded with messages. The first message came from a Valari, cultural society on a distant colony world. We read about the child who is forgetting her mother's smell, they wrote. Valari mothers produce special scent compounds. They are unique to each individual, but we can synthesize similar compounds from family records. If this child's mother is in our database, we can create a blanket that smells like her. Please send us the child's family name. Sue stared at the message for a long time. Then she cried. The second message came from a veterans organization on Earth. Many of the members had fought alongside alien resistance forces. During the HFY War, they had seen the horrors that children faced. They wanted to help. We are starting a fund, they wrote. The Kreth boy who lost his arm, we can buy him a prosthetic. Not a cheap one, a good one. The kind that lets him feel things again. How much do we need? The answer was a lot. Kreth-compatible prosthetics were expensive. But within 3 days, the fund had reached its goal. Then it passed its goal. Then it doubled. The third message made Sue cry again. It came from an elderly, Morvith couple on a farming moon in the outer territories. They had seen the post about the twin sisters who refused to be separated. We have a farm, they wrote. It is quiet and safe. We have no children of our own. Our species does not do well alone, and neither do we. We would like to adopt both sisters, if they will have us. We are already filing the paperwork. Please, can you help us reach them? Sue called her father immediately. Appa, she said, her voice shaking. Something is happening. Something big. She told him about the messages. About the Valari Society and the Veterans Fund and the Morvith couple. About the thousands of people who had seen the post and wanted to help. Du-hun listened in silence. When she finished, he could not speak. His throat was too tight. Why? He finally managed. Why are strangers helping children they have never met? Sue, I thought about that question for a long moment. Because you asked, she said. That is all. You asked, and people answered. Maybe they were waiting for permission. Maybe they wanted to help but did not know how. You showed them how. Over the next 2 weeks, the network grew. A cargo company offered free shipping to the station. Their CEO had lost his own children in the war. He said it was the least he could do. A toy factory on a manufacturing world donated 500 handmade toys. The workers had volunteered their own time to make them. A Delany trauma therapist saw the post about the teenage boy who was afraid to sleep. She offered to provide free counseling sessions through quantum link communication. I have seen this before, she wrote. War does terrible things to young minds. But healing is possible. I want to help. Artists from 12 different worlds created paintings and drawings for the children. Musicians recorded lullabies in 12 languages. Writers sent stories and poems. A famous chef from a Vosk restaurant sent recipes for traditional dishes. along with the ingredients to make them. Food is memory, he wrote. When you eat the food of your home, you remember who you are. Every day, Dahan received more messages, more offers, more gifts. He could not believe it. He was just a janitor. He had no power, no influence, no money. He had only asked for help, and the galaxy had answered. Hannah helped him organize everything. They made lists of gifts and lists of children. They matched wishes to donations. They tracked packages as they traveled across star systems. It was exhausting work. They barely slept. They skipped meals. They spent every free moment planning, coordinating, preparing. But they were not alone anymore. Other staff members began to notice what was happening. A kitchen worker named Beat Jisu asked what all the messages were about. When Doan explained, she immediately offered to help. I can cook, she said. If we're going to have a celebration, we need food. Real food. Not the station's usual gray paste. A medical assistant named Kwan Minho overheard and joined in. I can help with the prosthetic arm. I have training in fitting alien medical devices. The boy will need someone to teach him how to use it. A security officer named Han Junho showed up at Dahan's door one night, looking embarrassed. I heard what you were doing, he said gruffly. I am not good with children. I do not know how to talk to them. But I can carry heavy things and stay awake for long hours. Put me to work. By December 20th, they had a team of 11 people. They worked through the nights, sorting and wrapping and labeling. They hid packages in storage rooms and supply closets. They whispered plans in hallways and traded secret smiles. Administrator Cal noticed that something was happening. He saw the staff members talking quietly together. He saw the packages arriving at the cargo bay. He saw Dahan walking through the station with a look of purpose that janitors should not have. But he said nothing. Perhaps he did not want to know. Perhaps he did not care. Or perhaps, somewhere in his insect heart, he understood that some things were bigger than budgets and mandates. On December 23rd, the last package arrived. It was small, wrapped in blue paper. Inside was a soft blanket, made from Valari fabric, infused with the scent compounds of a mother who had died 3 years ago. In a burning city. Duhan held the package in his hands for a long moment. He thought about Thierry, the small blue girl who was forgetting her mother's smell. He thought about how she would feel when she opened this gift. He thought about all the strangers across the galaxy who had worked together to make this moment possible. He did not believe in magic, but this felt like magic anyway. Hana found him standing there, staring at the package with tears on his face. Are you all right? She asked softly. I am thinking about my wife, Dohan said. She believed that people were good, that if you showed them a way to help, they would take it. I always thought she was too optimistic, too naive. He looked at Hana, and for the first time in years, he smiled. She was right. She was always right. The central hall of the station had never looked like this before. Paper stars hung from the ceiling, cut from recycled documents and painted with whatever colors the staff could find. Streamers made from old fabric twisted between the lights. In one corner, a small artificial tree stood proudly, decorated with handmade ornaments that the children had created without knowing why. An engineering worker named Taijin had rigged a projector to display falling snow on the walls. The flakes drifted down slowly, silently, turning the gray metal room into something that almost looked like magic. Dohan stood in the doorway, watching the transformation. 3 weeks ago, this hall had been just another empty space. Cold floors, bare walls, flickering lights. Now it felt alive. It felt hopeful. It felt like the kind of place where impossible things might happen. The packages were hidden in a storage room nearby. 847 gifts, wrapped and labeled, waiting for morning. Some were small toys, books, recordings of songs from destroyed homeworlds. Some were large and complicated, like Vaco's prosthetic arm, which sat in a specialized medical case and in a blue box on the top shelf. There was a blanket that smelled like a dead mother. "It looks beautiful," Hana said, coming to stand beside him. "It looks like hope," Dohan replied. The clicking sound came from behind them. They turned to find Administrator Kel standing in the corridor, his compound eyes reflecting the snowflakes on the walls. "This is unauthorized modification of station facilities," Kel said. Duhan did not move. "Yes, you have used station resources without approval. You have coordinated with outside organizations without going through proper channels. You have disrupted normal operations." "Yes." Kel's mandibles clicked rapidly. "I could have you terminated. All of you. You could." The administrator was silent for a long moment. His many eyes moved slowly across the decorated hall, taking in the stars and streamers and artificial snow. His clicking became softer, almost thoughtful. "Administrator Kel," Dohan said quietly, "do you know what happens to orphaned children who lose hope?" Kel did not answer. "I have seen the reports. The statistics. Children who stop eating because they do not see the point. Children who hurt themselves because the pain inside is too big. Children who are placed with families and then sent back because they have forgotten how to trust, how to love, how to be children at all." Dohan stepped closer to the administrator. "You keep them alive. That is your mandate. But alive is not the same as living. These children need more than food and shelter. They need to believe that the universe is not entirely cruel. They need one good day, one perfect moment, one reason to keep hoping." Kel's clicking had stopped completely. "This is not sentimentality," Dohan continued. "This is medicine. This is survival. And it costs you nothing except tolerance." The silence stretched between them. Then Administrator Kel turned and walked away without another word. His footsteps echoed down the corridor, growing fainter and fainter until they disappeared entirely. No complaint was filed. No one was terminated. The decoration stayed. Hana let out a breath she had been holding. "How did you know he would not stop us?" Dohan shook his head. "I did not know. I hoped. That seems to be all we do these days. Hope. It is enough. It has to be enough." That night, while the children slept, the team gathered in the decorated hall. Sue had sent the final package, a red suit and a white beard. Shipped all the way from Earth. Dohan held them in his hands, feeling the soft fabric between his fingers. "You should wear it," Hana said. "I am too thin. I do not look like Santa." Jizu, the kitchen worker, grabbed pillows from a nearby storage cabinet. "We can fix that." They stuffed pillows under the red jacket until Dohan looked round and jolly. Minho, the medical assistant, fashioned the white beard from synthetic fiber and attached it carefully to Dohan's face. Junho, the security officer, found a pair of black boots that were almost the right size. When they were finished, Dohan looked at himself in a reflective panel. A tired old man in a costume stared back at him. He did not look magical. He did not look like a legendary gift-giver from Earth mythology. He looked exactly like what he was, a janitor pretending to be something more. But then Hana adjusted his hat, and Jisoo smoothed the wrinkles in his jacket, and Taijin gave him a thumbs up. And suddenly Dohan realized something. It did not matter how he looked. What mattered was what he represented. Hope, kindness, the impossible made possible. "Are you ready?" Hana asked. Dohan took a deep breath. "No, but I will do it anyway." They loaded the packages onto carts and began the long walk through the station. The sleeping wards were quiet. 847 children lay in their beds, dreaming whatever dreams orphans dream. Some slept peacefully. Some tossed and turned, fighting battles in their minds that would never truly end. Some clutched thin pillows or worn stuffed toys, holding on to the only comfort they had. Nohan moved slowly from bed to bed, placing packages at small feet. He saw Tiri, the Valari girl, curled up in a ball with her thumb in her mouth. He placed her blue package carefully beside her pillow, close enough that the scent might reach her even before she woke. He saw Vako, the Kreth boy, sleeping on his side because he could not sleep on his back anymore. The missing arm made it too uncomfortable. The medical case with the prosthetic was too large to fit at the foot of his bed, so Dohan placed it on a nearby table with a note that said, "For Vico, from Santa. P.S. The medical team will help you put it on." He saw the twin Morvid sisters, sleeping so close together that their fur was tangled. They held hands even in sleep. Dohan placed 2 packages between them, matching toys, matching books, matching everything. Beside the packages, he placed a photograph of an elderly Morvith couple standing in front of a farmhouse. With a letter that explained everything, he saw the teenage Delaney boy, who was not really sleeping. His eyes were closed, but his body was too tense, his breathing too controlled. Dohan placed a small package beside him containing a communication device, pre-programmed with a therapist's contact information, and a note that said, "You are not alone. Help is waiting. Call whenever you need." It took hours to deliver every package. By the time they finished, Dohan's back ached, his feet throbbed, and his eyes burned from exhaustion. The fake beard was itchy, and the pillows under his jacket had shifted uncomfortably, but he had never felt more alive. They gathered one last time in the decorated hall as the station's artificial lights began to brighten, simulating dawn. "What do we do now?" Jisoo asked. "We wait," Doan said. "And we hope." Hannah looked at him with tired eyes. "What if it is not enough? What if they are disappointed? What if we promised them magic and all they got was bis?" Dohan thought about that question. He thought about Yoonji, his wife, knitting blankets in her hospital bed. He thought about strangers across the galaxy who had sent money and gifts and love to children they would never meet. He thought about 11 staff members who had given up sleep and rest to make one morning special. "This is magic," he said softly. "It does not look like the stories. It does not come from supernatural beings or mystical powers. It comes from people choosing to be kind when they do not have to be. That is the only magic that has ever been real." Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Then let us see what magic looks like in the morning." They waited. And somewhere in the sleeping wards a small blue girl began to stir, her nose twitching as a familiar scent reached her dreams. Dohan was mopping the cafeteria when the screening started. He stopped, his hands frozen on the mop handle. For one terrible moment, he thought something had gone wrong. He thought the children were hurt, or scared, or crying. Then he realized it was not screaming, it was shrieking, laughing. The thunderous, chaotic, beautiful sound of hundreds of children discovering that something impossible had happened while they slept. He kept mopping. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. Every part of him wanted to run to the sleeping wards and see what was happening. But he was afraid. Afraid that it was not enough. Afraid that the children would be disappointed. Afraid that all his work, all his hope, all his love had failed. So he mopped. Back and forth, the familiar motion keeping him grounded. Hannah found him there 20 minutes later. She was crying. Tears streamed down her face, leaving wet trails on her cheeks. But she was smiling too, the biggest smile Dawn had ever seen on her tired face. "You have to come see," she said. "I have work." "Dawn." She grabbed the mop from his hands and threw it aside. It clattered against the wall, leaving a wet mark. "You have to see." She took his hand and pulled him through the corridors. The station had transformed. Children were everywhere, running, jumping, spinning, dancing. They clutched toys and books and treasures in their small hands. They showed each other their gifts, speaking in excited voices that mixed a dozen languages into one joyful noise. The lorry boy was hugging a stuffed animal so tightly that it seemed he might never let go. Creth Girl was reading a book about her homeworld, turning the pages with careful fingers, tears running down her gray face. A group of Morvith children were listening to a recording of traditional songs, swaying back and forth together, their fur brushing against each other. The decorated hall was pandemonium. Dahan stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. Children of 12 species were crying and laughing at the same time. They were showing each other their treasures. They were calling out to friends across the room. They were being children truly, fully, completely children in a way that Dahan had never seen on this station. In one corner, Vako sat very still. The Creth boy was staring at his arm. His new arm. Minho, the medical assistant, had helped him put on the prosthetic that morning. It was a beautiful piece of technology, sleek and silver, fitted perfectly to his body, connected to his nerves so he could feel and move and grip. Vako flexed his mechanical fingers. He closed them into a fist. He opened them again. He touched his own face, feeling the sensation against his palm. Then he wrapped both arms, the real one and the new one, around himself. And he held on tight. He was hugging himself. Because he could. Because he had arms again. In another corner, the twin Morvith sisters were not alone. The elderly couple from the photograph sat with them, all four of them, tangled together in a furry embrace. The old farmer was crying, his weathered face wet with tears. His wife was laughing and crying at the same time, stroking the twins' heads with gentle hands. They had traveled 4 days through relay gates to be there in person. They wanted to meet their new daughters face to face. The sisters had not stopped touching them since they arrived. They held hands, leaned against shoulders, pressed their small bodies close. They were terrified that if they let go, the couple would disappear. But the couple was not going anywhere. They had already signed the adoption papers. They were a family now, and standing alone by the window, the teenage Delaney boy was talking on his new communication device. His voice was quiet, too soft for Doan to hear. But his body language had changed. His shoulders were lower. His breathing was slower. The tight, defensive posture he always carried was softening. Just a little bit. On the other end of the call, a therapist was listening. Really listening. For the first time in years, someone was paying attention to his pain. It would be a long road. Healing always was. But the first step had been taken. Dahan felt a small hand tug at his sleeve. He looked down and found Tiri standing there. The little blue girl was clutching her blanket, her mother's blanket, pressed against her face. Her big dark eyes were wet with tears, but she was smiling. It was the first real smile Doan had ever seen on her face. The teacher said Santa is not real, Tiri said. Her voice was soft and serious, the way children sound when they are thinking very hard. She said it is a story about kindness, about people choosing to give. Doan crouched down so he was at her level. His knees ached, but he did not care. What do you think? He asked. I considered the question with the gravity that only children possess. She looked at the blanket in her hands, breathing in the scent of the mother she had been forgetting. She looked at the chaos of the hall, at all the children with their impossible gifts. She looked at Dawn, studying his face with her big dark eyes. Then she reached out and touched his cheek. Specifically, she touched a spot where a small smear of synthetic white fiber remained. A bit of sun on his beard that he had not washed off. I think, Tiri said slowly, that humans are very strange. Strange how? You break your hearts for people you do not know. You spend everything to give joy to children who are not yours. You cross the whole galaxy to make strangers smile. She paused, her small blue fingers still resting on his cheek. I think maybe that is what makes Sonder real. Not magic, not flying animals, just people. People who choose to care. Dalhan's throat closed completely. He could not speak. Tiri hugged him, a brief, fierce embrace, her small arms barely reaching around his neck, and then she ran off to show her blanket to the other children. He stayed there, crouched on the floor for a long time. Later, much later, Hannah found him. The news networks picked up the story, she said quietly. It is spreading across the galaxy. Everyone is talking about the station, about what happened here, about you. Dawn shook his head. It was not me. It was everyone. The donors, the volunteers, the staff. I just asked for help. You did more than ask. You believed it was possible when no one else did. He thought about that dot. He thought about all the small moments that had led to this morning. The decision to photograph the letters instead of throwing them away. The choice to approach the administrator, even though he knew he would be refused. The call to his daughter in the middle of the night. The courage to keep going when everything seemed impossible. He had not done anything heroic. He had not saved the galaxy or won a war or discovered a cure for disease. He had just been stubborn enough to try and lucky enough to find people who wanted to help. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all anyone could do. The donations continued arriving for months. The station received a permanent funding increase, enough to hire more staff and improve the facilities. A new program was established to match orphan children with adoptive families across the galaxy. The waiting lists began to shrink. And a human phrase entered the vocabularies of 12 different species. Untranslatable but universally understood. Christmas miracle. But Dalhan did not think about any of that. He stood in the doorway of a room full of laughing children. His eyes burning with tears, he could not stop. He thought about his wife, Unji, knitting blankets until her hands could not hold the needles anymore. He thought about her last words to him, spoken in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and flowers. The world is cold, she had said, but hands are warm, and warm hands can make the world a little softer. He had not understood then. He had been too lost in grief, too focused on what he was losing to hear what she was trying to teach him. But he understood now. The universe was vast, and cold and indifferent. War happened. Families were destroyed. Children were left alone. Pain was everywhere, and there was no magical force that would fix it. But there were hands. Human hands, alien hands, all kinds of hands. Hands that could reach out, that could give, that could hold. Hands that could choose to be kind when the universe gave them no reason to be. That was the only magic that mattered. Duhan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He took a deep breath. And then he walked into the room full of children, ready to join the celebration. Behind him, through the window, the stars burned cold and bright in the endless darkness of space. But inside the station, for one perfect morning, the world was warm.